surrender to yourself. Don't surrender to anybody else. And that whole thing, I remember one time, because I've been married a couple times or so, but in this realm. But it always really didn't work for me. I learned a lot and it was a really great experience, but my nature is a very free spirit, very free soul, because I'm very committed to my spiritual life. And what I did is I thought, well, I'll be a surrendered wife. That works. That didn't work. Because then it's like I'm following behind someone who's could be a nutcase. And then I have to do what they tell me because the religion says it, that this says it. Well, who made the religions? Who wrote the words and told how it's supposed to be? That people say, well, I have to study this and that's the word that I'm going to study. But in the beginning was the word. John 1, remember? In the beginning was the word. And the word was with God. And the word was God. And that becomes God for people because how this realm is set up as a virtual reality, a perverted shadow reflection of the true divine reality. And so what happens when you understand that what would you do without letters and numbers? What if you didn't have numbers and you weren't counting? There'd be no banking because nobody's counting. There'd be no situations, well, I gave this much and they gave me this much and I'm doing more for everybody than they're doing for me, and it's in the mind. See, all of these are mind exercises. And so counting then, and then letters, and then we know the letters also have a corresponding number. So then those letters create words, and each of those letters has a number and also has a sound, and as we order it and we speak it, and it also then is given color and form. And when we speak, and then we're actually manifesting or thinking, we're manifesting this reality. And this reality is a dense reality of those words and sounds and meanings that we have given to numbers. Just like you say, that person's worth $2 billion. Really? And this person's worth nothing because the person's homeless or doesn't have a thing. They're worth nothing. Oh yeah, they're expendable because we're worth something. Well, if you really looked at it, if the people that took charge of this realm, if they really cared about us, we would be living a harmonious life, everybody. Because when you're living in harmony with divine nature, you're living in harmony with yourself and all others. And so with all of the stuff of surrender, well, I'll surrender to my teacher. You don't surrender to your teacher or your guru or your boss and do what they tell you, even if it goes against your moral values and what you know is true and real, just like going into the armed services or whatever. This is all created to kill people. That's all it is. It's suffering, torture, stealing. It's keeping us in a drama. And when you surrender to yourself, that means you invest in your consciousness. I think I've invested hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in my consciousness by all the seminars, classes, libraries of books that I've read, because I was searching for clues. And because I started to realize, and it was really when I was getting right out of high school and getting ready to, get out in the world, maybe go to college or get married or whatever I was going to do, it was like I was afraid. How am I going to make it in the world? What am I going to do? I'm going to have to leave out of the house like a bird out of the nest. I got to fly, but fly with what? Because I really realized my own parents didn't have any real knowledge. My great-grandmother, she was a wisdom keeper. And I was able to be with her as a baby and a child and take care of her and learn from her. And when you surrender to yourself, you only make choices that are really good for you eternally, not just for the moment. And see what happens? People surrender to their cell phone. They surrender to their electronics. They surrender to search engines. They surrender to media. They surrender to the mainstream media or to the alternate media or anything. It's because it's all information that's going out there about this realm. And what you want to know is about yourself. That's not taught in school, not taught in most religions. That's why, when I took like the teachings of Jesus, and I really moved into the Essene because I knew that he was the teacher of righteousness, they were vegetarians. They taught how to really be healthy. But see, everything then gets co-opted and moved in the direction of those who want you to surrender to their concepts, to their ideas, to their plans, to their reality that may have nothing in it that is really true and valid as our true divine nature. If a person is living in hell, they have a hellish consciousness, or they have been put in hell by someone who has a hellish consciousness, you see. And the first Hermetic axiom is all is mind. And that is sharing with us. That was by Thoth or Thought. And that was Hermes, I believe was a Greek. And we're talking the 7 Hermetic axioms. We're actually just giving some ideas of how thought then creates this reality. If you study it and read it. It's in my book, Live Your Bliss. And why bliss is so important is because it's a state of being that we're naturally in when we're not thinking. And we are taught to think. We're taught to be thinkers, not knowers, not to trust our inner guidance because you don't know anything. Yeah, you're stupid. You're just, you think you're intuitive. Everybody's already psychic. They've got a new pill's going to come out, make everybody, the people who want it psychic. You already are. You can't have something you don't already have. And it's these layers of ignorance, of unconsciousness, of suffering, of lack, of limitation, of fear, guilt, and all of this, that the whole desire of war is duality. And that's the battle of the mind between what you're thinking and what you know. And there has to come a time that you get that these others out there are not going to do it for you. You've got to invest in your own. That's what you want to use this for, is so that you become so centered in your beingness, and even here in your own 2 feet, planted firmly on the earth, harmonizing with nature, bringing forth your true self, and being that true self. And then in the bubble of your own reality, it's your consciousness. It isn't someone else's consciousness unless you take on their concepts, their ideas, their beliefs, because you call that true and real, because you're tested on it in school. Of course. You get the carrot or the stick. You get the reward or the punishment. And this duality is so promoted. In fact, when you do your research, like I go to I'm a rootist, go to the root of wherever that came from. And most all of this actually metaphysical knowledge comes at one level from the Vedas, but it also the overlay of this virtual reality. We don't need any virtual anything. You can have in this moment of now all the pleasure, the joy, the love, the prosperity, all that you desire when you discover and remove all of these programmed hypnotic thoughts, illusion, All of the mysteries, when people say life's a mystery, it is not. It's because they haven't done their research. Oh, there are no answers. Well, there's an answer for everything depending on the question. But the mind is question and answer all the time. And if you're seeking, you seek what is the best for me. And what is the best for me is also working and endeavoring for the best of all. And the best of all doesn't mean you have all the glitter and the money and the planes and all of this of the so-called elitists, whoever they think they are. They're illusion because they're in the trap. You see, the prisoners are in the same place as the guards in a jail, and the guards are in the same place as a prisoner. And then when people are locked in a prison of the mind, and they're trying to surrender to everything outside themselves to bring them happiness and bring them love and security and feel good, it never happens. It's temporary, and you lose it, and you still live in fear. That's why in my work, and I've gone to, is the real root of all of this. And there's so many great researchers out there, and there's so much truth. But what happens is people tend to want to live in their own little bubble, and then they'll, wherever they were told how it is and where it is, they look no further than that because they've been made afraid to research. See, we should be able to know everything. And when you have rules where people can't say things and they can't do certain things and they can't speak their mind and they can't study, they burn the books. What do you do with electronics? Push the button. It's gone. Use now. Yes, do your study. You know, work with, I think of all the people I've worked with that have helped me, all the workshops, seminars, retreats. That's why I do retreats. That's why I do Grandmaster mentoring. That's why I do counseling. I don't do what do they call it, coaching. No, because life is not a game with winners and losers. No. And mentoring or teaching people or helping people, because I'm so grateful for all the people that have helped me, and all of the ancient wisdom that's still available. But the most thing is when you surrender to yourself, then that self, that super self, is the self of all selves. It is the super soul of all souls. And that when we do that, we are always on holy ground. And then we have no more fear of death. We have no more play the reincarnation game. We no longer are are the energy source of a false reality based on duality and conflict and war and everybody trying to blow up everything, but blah, 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 blah. Why? Why? It's not necessary. None of it. So, hey, you can't count on anybody or anything out there. First, surrender to yourself. Yes. That's the place of the treasures and the divine pleasure of the soul. Yes.